Brhad Bhagavatamrta, Part 2, Chapter 6, Text 362. The pastimes of the Lord are ever existing and purely spiritual, formed of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Of their own accord, those pastimes, attracted to the Lord's lotus feet to engage in service, follow him everywhere, supplying the entourage and paraphernalia for each occasion. Commentary: Krishna's pastimes are Satchitananda Mayi, composed of Sat, Chit, and Ananda. In this context, the suffix Mayi could mean either identity or transformation, quote unquote. In other words, since Krishna's Leela are a display of Krishna's internal energy, they are non-different from him, and they are also a manifestation of transcendental variety. There are never any defects in Krishna's Leelas, even when Krishna seems to behave like an ordinary person. And there's a reference here, 10.8.31. This is Krishna's childhood pastimes. The ladies of the neighborhood complained to Yashoda. When Krishna is caught in his naughty activities, the master of the house will say to him, "Oh, you are a thief," and artificially express anger at Krishna. Krishna will then reply, "I am not a thief, you are a thief." Sometimes, being angry, Krishna passes urine and stool in a neat, clean place in our houses. But now, our dear friend Yashoda, this expert thief, is sitting before you like a very good boy. Sometimes all the gopis would look at Krishna sitting there, his eyes fearful, so that his mother would not chastise him. And when they saw Krishna's beautiful face, instead of continuing to complain about him, they would simply look upon his face and enjoy transcendental bliss. Mother Yashoda would mildly smile at all this fun, and she would not want to chastise her blessed transcendental child. 10.8.31. To Krishna's feet his pastimes are attracted by their own desire to serve him, and they are attracted by the service attitude of his devotees. In the words of the Sri Vishnu Purana 5.22.18, Manusha dehinam cheshtam iti evam anuvartataha Leela jagatpatestasya chandata sampravartate. Translation, quote, the pastimes of the Lord of the universe unfold by their sweet will as he imitates the activities of living beings embodied as humans, unquote. 363. Oh, Brahmana, thus I've told you about Goloka's unique, most extreme greatness and sweetness, which flow everywhere like a flooding river. The Mathura Brahmana said, after striving for so long, in so many ways, and with so many desires in your heart, you achieved Krishna's abode. Now that he has gone to Madhupuri, where will you reside, and how will you live? Commentary. For a long time, Gopakumar had harbored the desire to see Sri Gopal Dev and join him in his pastimes. Now, Gopakumar has finally reached his destination, Goloka Vrindavan, but Krishna has left Vrindavan to go to Mathura. Under the circumstance, how can Gopakumar tolerate living in Braja? And since he is attached to the countryside where Krishna performed his childhood pastimes, how can he consider living in Mathura? Next verse, 365. So that's the Mathura Brahmana's question. Where are you going to live? And now that Krishna has gone to Madhupuri, he left Vrindavan, he went to Mathura. Madhupuri means Mathura. Where will you reside and how will you live? Because you're attached to Vrindavan. And Krishna's left Vrindavan. Sri Sarup said, by the order of the Lord, I and all devotees like me continue to live in Braja, in the company of Nanda and the others whose moods resemble ours. Commentary. When Krishna left Braja, he gave special instructions to the new devotees who had come to his abode on the strength of his mercy and their spontaneous raganuga sadhana. He told them to remain in Braja and continue to associate with great devotees like Nanda, whose ways of devotion were similar to their own. Otherwise, if the new devotees were to go to Mathura, the incompatible local mood would disturb them, and their spiritual development would be impeded. With such considerations in mind, Sri Hari Bhakti Sudodaya 851 states, Sva Kular Dhyai Tamodiman Sva Yutan Eva Samsrajet. Translation: if an intelligent person wants to see his family prosper, he should stay with his own kind. Interesting commentary. So stay in Vrindavan because your mood and their mood is the same. So stay. 366. This is the nature of Goloka, Krishna's world. Even in his absence, the residents want to stay. None want to go anywhere else. 367. There, sorrow dances vigorously on the head of every kind of happiness. And anguish gives a joy more intense than any bliss. Commentary. In Goloka, the apparent misery of separation from Krishna is in fact the greatest happiness, and the anxiety felt by the Golokavasis is more ecstatic than any other pleasure. As already explained, both these contrary effects are due to the unique nature of the special love for Krishna found only in Goloka. 368. After so long having attained my desires, there I reside, beyond all desires. And to my heart's content I relish the supreme and endless perfection of life. Yet, the nature of that reality is such that I never feel satiated. 369. Never, then, for any reason, can I give up Krishna's all-attractive lotus feet, smeared with the kumkum from the breasts of the women of Braja. Never can I stop serving those feet with all my senses, body, and mind, not even for a fraction of a second. 370. Krishna showed this most wretched person the favor of his mercy, mercy others can never hope for, enchanted with the taste of his divine sweetness. To no one should this be disclosed, yet I have recounted my story to you. Commentary. As Srila Sanatana Goswami has revealed earlier in his commentary, Srimati Radharani personally ordered Sri Sarup to enlighten the Mathura Brahmin. It comes at the end, but it was mentioned by Sanatana Goswami in his commentary earlier. 371. After staying some time in Goloka, I realized this splendid Mathura Mandala here in the mortal world is not different. Commentary. Knowledge of Goloka applies equally to Gokula and vice versa because these two places are identical. Just as a Jnani's realization of impersonal Brahman includes realization of the individual spirit soul, realization of either Goloka or Gokula includes the realization of the other. Were impersonal realization to disallow the Brahmavadis from perceiving their own selves, they would have no impetus to follow their own discipline, because knowledge of Brahman in the beginning of its development is too subtle to perceive. Impersonal Brahman cannot be known by the untrained mind, and so, for the benefit of neophyte Jnanis, the Upanishads refer to Brahman merely as Tat, or that, as in the famous aphorism of the Chandogya Upanishad, Tattvamasi, you are that. (372) Divine Gopas, gopis, and cows abound in varieties in Gokula, just as in Goloka, and so do the other animals, and the birds, and the insects, and the mountains, rivers, trees, and other beings. Commentary. Goloka and Gokula resemble one another down to the details of individual living beings. The individual persons playing the roles in one place may be distinct from those in the other, but the functions they serve in the pleasure pastimes of the personality of Godhead are exactly the same. Gokula's cowherd men and women and all its creatures, down to the creepers and bushes, closely resemble their counterparts in the spiritual world. 373. And this place is adorned with a never-ending stream of similar pastimes, expanded by the glorious Krishna Chandra. I reside therefore sometimes here and sometimes there. No longer do I perceive any difference between these two abodes. Commentary. Sri Sarup and his disciple are in Vrajabhumi on earth. Now Sri Sarup sees no difference between the two abodes. But before he attained this realization, he had to make a great endeavor to transfer himself from Gokula to Goloka. 375. Traveling from one to the other, back and forth, may make it seem that there is some distinction, but I am so attached to both places that I hardly notice any difference. Commentary. Sri Sarup perceives the distance as he moved from the middle of the material universe to the topmost limit of the spiritual sky, but to him, this distraction is insignificant. The journey is no more troublesome than the walk a farmer has to take to a field near his home. 376. Neither my sight nor my hearing nor even my mind ever touches any other abode than these two. Commentary. Being exclusively attached to Krishna and his abodes, Sri Sarup is oblivious to everything else. 377. My heart never thinks that the original Supreme Lord Sri Krishna or his devotees like those present here could ever reside anywhere else. Commentary here. Sarupa is talking only about the Swayam Bhagavan, the original personality Godhead, and his Braja devotees, not about the Lord's expansions like Vasudeva and Dwarka and their devotees like Vasudeva. That's his father. 378. From time to time, I may see residents of Vaikuntha or some other place, but to my eyes they appear tormented by separation from Sri Krishna. Commentary. Sri Sarup, the vision, is that of a Paramahamsa situated in Brajabhav, the mood of Braja. He sees everyone, even outsiders, as if they were also in that mood. When he meets devotees from Dwarka, Ayodhya, and Vaikuntha, he projects his own feelings onto them and presumes that they are anguished by not being with Krishna in Braja. In this way, nothing distracts Sarup from his meditation on the glories of Goloka, and he remains satisfied in all circumstances. 379. By not seeing in those other devotees a mood like that of the residents of Braja, I may occasionally be disappointed. Yet that only makes my love for Krishna shine forth more brightly. And so my disappointment becomes a cause of supreme joy. Commentary. Because the devotees of all the expansions of Godhead are eternally blissful, Sarupa sometimes notices that even outside Braja, even without Krishna's direct company, such devotees are happy. That anyone could think himself happy without being in the mood of Braja disturbs Sarupa occasionally, but that very agitation impels his love for Krishna in Goloka to increase. He can thus remain happy even while passing through Vaikuntha or the material world. The final verse of this chapter 6 is 380. How much can I say about that supreme reality? Oh, the world of Goloka. Its multitude of residents, honored by all the worlds, always perceive its greatness. And now I've said enough. To all who live with the Lord in that abode, I offer my obeisances. Namo Namaha. Mama Namaha. Commentary. Goloka is the ultimate reality, and the essence of that reality is pure love for the lotus feet of Sri Nanda Nandana. Hearing about and describing the wonderful sports of Krishna in Goloka and in Mathura, Gokula, on earth, are the most worthwhile engagements for anyone. Ultimately, however, one can only say so much, and one must finish by simply offering one's respects to the most fortunate inhabitants of Lord Krishna's abode. By honoring them, one honors their pure love for Krishna, a love which is the highest goal of all endeavors. Thus ends the 6th chapter, part 2, Srila Sanatana Goswami's Brhad Bhagavatamrta, entitled Abhishta Labha, the attainment of all desires. Chapter 7, Jagatananda, the bliss of the worlds. Text number 1. Sri Sarup said, "My dear Brahmana, now think carefully and decide for yourself what is the highest goal of life and what is the best way to achieve it." Commentary. The 7th chapter describes how the Mathura Brahmana, by the mercy of Sri Sarup, achieved pure love for Krishna, and on the strength of that love, received Krishna's special favor. Paragraph. Sarup has depicted the most important aspects of the glories of Goloka. Now, all that remains is for him to give an explicit answer to the Brahmana's early query from the 1st chapter of part 2, text number 98. Quote, "From various sources, I've heard of various goals and various methods to achieve them, but still I cannot definitely decide what goal I should strive for and what I should do to reach it. To test whether the Brahmana disciple has now correctly understood what he has been taught, Sarupa asks him to give his own opinion about what should be his sadhya and sadhana, his goal and his means to achieve it. Text 2. Please understand, O best of the Mathura Brahmanas, just like me, you have already fully achieved your goal by the mercy of the divine goddess. The divine goddess, here coming up, Kamakya Devi, gave him the Gopal mantra. And that Kamakya Devi, by worldly estimation, is a form of Durga. But later we're going to hear how that form of Durga is expansion of Radharani, and it was Radharani herself appearing as if Kamakya Devi gave the mantra to the Mathura Brahman. So Radharani herself was the Diksha Guru. Appearing to be Kamakya Devi, the Durga of this world, because that's who he was worshipping. Commentary. Sarup's disciple, on the verge of perfection, has yet to realize the glories of Goloka directly, but soon he will. Instead of trying to explain more about those glories, his guru advises that he merely be patient, and soon he will see everything with his own eyes. Text 3. Whatever is left for you to achieve, you have already nearly attained, please know this, I can see that the Supreme Lord has bestowed upon you his full mercy. Commentary, quote, but visible signs of perfection have not yet appeared in me, the Brahmana might humbly assert. Here, Sarup disagrees. Sri Golokanath, Sri Golokanath has already singled the Brahmana out as recipient of his full mercy. Text 4. Just see, I have indeed told you everything that happened to me and to the Lord and to his devotees, even though these topics are most confidential. Text 5 through 7. I think this will be it for this morning. The special ecstasies one relishes in the shelter of the personality of Godhead's lotus feet are private. One should feel shy to reveal them, even to one's own mind. And sometimes I entered special states of consciousness in which I could no longer recognize myself or others, nor distinguish one thing from the next. And so there were events I didn't see. Yet Krishna, in your presence, has entered my heart and brought all these topics out, forcing them to come from my mouth. This is like Ramananda Roy speaking by the movements of Mahaprabhu. Commentary. A spiritual master can certainly reveal even the most secret knowledge to a faithful, deserving disciple. The Mathura Brahmana, before hearing his guru's personal history, was a raw neophyte, and Sarup was, at different times, too distracted by ecstasy to perceive clearly what was going on, and so had difficulty recounting some of the events of his spiritual journey. But despite all this, and despite Sarup's reluctance, Krishna forced the whole story from Sarup's mouth, like Sanatana is doing. The Sanatana Goswami will hear this weekend, like absolutely humble. We earlier in chapter 6, we heard multiple times the word dainya, but the way that Gopi has translated is utter humility, utter humility. And utter humility is non-different from prema. And utter humility nourishes prema. And Sanatana Goswami is in that place. Utter humility, being filled up completely with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, to disclose truths about Krishna and truths about Vrindavan. That's why he sent him to Vrindavan, to do that work on his behalf, at least the way that it's described. I have to stay here in Puri, so I have to work through you. And he does, like he spoke through Ramananda Roy. So Sanatana Goswami is forced to express because of the impelling force of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. And and these things are very confidential. Normally, we're just hearing such confidential things we don't disclose. And here he goes. He's forced, impelled. And without having such disclosure, how do we understand these things? And even to hear them, how will we understand these things? But it's impetus, it's stimulations of ecstatic love to hear from realized persons, and he's, very kindly sharing in a very eloquent and very elegant and very poetic fashion. And somehow we're recipients of that mercy. That's like amazing. Prabhupada writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, I forget which purport, but he says, if one wants to know, was going to come up in the Sanatana Goswami description this weekend, if one wants to know about devotional service, devotees, and the Lord, one must carefully study Brhad Bhagavatamrta. So who doesn't want to know those things? And the way that he's revealing, it's amazing. Very, very confidential topics, and the way that they're presented also very confidential. And we're getting the mercy. I'm kind of attached to completing. There's a lot of pages left. Look at all those pages left. And, a big portion in the back of the book is all of his references and appendices and things. But here's how many pages left. This many pages. So we're stopping at page 558, and the last page is 820. So it's something like 250 pages remaining. And now where do you go from where we ended up? It's really amazing literature. And it's expanding. It's simply a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. I mean, that's the context. It's other things too, but it's a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. Uttara is saying to Parikshit, I didn't understand everything. Could you explain it? So 2 times, that was really nice. Can you explain it further? Part 1, part 2. And so that this is Sanatana Goswami's empowerment from Lord Chaitanya to explain Bhagavad Gita, or explain Srimad Bhagavatam, or explains Krishna. Devotees, devotional service, and Krishna.
Moments associations.
Well, it's 8 o'clock. Maybe because you just came in for a landing. Maybe I'll read a little more.
Pardon?
Because you just arrived and we're just wrapping up, I'll read another 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
But we've been starting on time. Okay, Surup continues speaking to the Mathura Brahmin in Gokula. I have noted clear signs that you have gained strong faith in these topics, a faith that will soon bestow upon you all its rewards. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam, and it's in Uddhava Gita, where exactly what's being said here is said by Krishna to Uddhava. The one who has faith in the topics of Krishna very quickly comes to the stage of perfection. Now, quickly it's relative, But, otherwise it's very slow at best. Commentary. The disposition of another's heart is difficult to read, but an elevated person with clear intelligence can discern from one's gestures where one's faith lies. From the satisfied expressions of the Brahmana's face, Sarup knew this disciple has developed confidence in the truth of my story. In other words, Sarup's mission had achieved success. Once strong faith in the transcendental reality is established, when spiritual practice very quickly bears fruit. Exactly Krishna's message to Uddhava. Listen to this, text 9. Early this morning, Sri Radhika Devi herself came and ordered me. Sarup, a Brahmana from Mathura, who is my devotee, is coming to my grove. Commentary. The Mathura Brahmana considered himself a devotee of Durga, but she is a partial expansion of Radhika, Lord Madan Gopal's eternal consort. Text 10. Go there, alone, the first thing today, enlighten him with good instructions, console him, and help him quickly attain Krishna's grace. Commentary. Had Sarup not awakened the Brahmana's higher intelligence, the Brahmana would not have obtained Sri Krishna's favor. I'll read it again. Had Sarup not awakened the Brahmana's higher intelligence, the Brahmana would not have obtained Sri Krishna's favor. Higher intelligence is needed to attain Krishna's favor. Text 11. On her instruction, I swiftly came here, overjoyed, without even a thought about missing the enjoyment of Krishna's company. Commentary. To carry out his assignment, Sarup left home early in the morning before Krishna went out to the forest with his friends. Sarup did not mind missing Krishna's company for one day because he knew that carrying out Sri Radha's order would endear him to Krishna, and this would surely increase the happiness he enjoyed with Krishna. Text 12. Sri Parikshit said, again, this is Parikshit retelling to Uttara what he understood from Shukadev Goswami when he spoke the Bhagavatam. Sri Parikshit said, when Sarup saw that the Brahmana, even after spoken to in this way, had not awakened to the treasure of pure love, Sarup put his hand on the Brahmana's head. By the mercy of the great soul, Sarup, everything Sarup had experienced became manifest at once in the Brahmana's heart, as if the Brahmana had experienced it himself. Such are the most amazing glories of contact with a great saint. By that contact, this Brahmana suddenly achieved perfection, realizing his eternal identity. Haribol. Commentary. Usually, this is a long purport, usually only the Lord's most qualified devotees attain pure love of God. After long endeavor for the Lord's special mercy, how then could this Brahmana have achieved prema so quickly? only by coming into contact with a powerful saint. The Brahmana's own efforts alone would have been to no avail. His success was possible by the unique glories of Vaishnava association, incomprehensible to material minds. Paragraph. In Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-55, Sri Devahuti remarks, Sangoya samsrater hetur asat su vivito diya saeva sadhushu krito niksanga vaya kalpate. Translation. Association to gratify the senses is certainly the path of bondage, but the same type of association performed with a saintly person leads to the path of liberation, even if performed without knowledge. Beautiful. Paragraph. When an ignorant person mixes with other degraded persons, the result is entanglement in material existence, in the enjoyment of food, drink, sex, and so on. But the company of pure souls, even if entered into with the same ignorance, enables one to become nisanga, free in two ways: detached from matter and uplifted to pure love of God. Prema is a form of detachment because it shuns all pursuits other than the attempt to please the personality of Godhead. Therefore, as stated in the Yoga Vashishta Ramayana, I don't know what that one is, Yoga Vashishta Ramayana, quote, in all circumstances, it gives the Sanskrit here, in all circumstances, one should approach saintly persons, even if one receives no teachings. Spontaneous dialogue with them imparts valuable lessons. When one approaches persons who have real knowledge, emptiness overflows with fullness, death becomes immortal nectar, and disasters can seem like good fortune. Yoga Vashishta Ramayana. Anyone know what that is? I'll try to find out. Continuing in the purport. It's a long purport. In Srimad Bhagavatam 3.7.19, Sri Vidura said, by serving the feet of the spiritual master, one develops transcendental ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead, who is the unchangeable enemy of the Madhu demon, and whose service vanquishes one's material distresses. Paragraph. Wow, this is a long purport. 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 Sound like a bird, huh?
24 pages.
How many?
24.
24. Well. I'll read another paragraph and we'll continue. We're already past. Okay. Vidura here speaks to his Shiksha Guru, Maitreya Muni. By serving Maitreya, Vidura expects to obtain the service of the Supreme Lord, who is difficult to understand, but whom one can approach by serving his pure devotees. The Supreme Person is Kuta Sta, which means both unchanging and inconceivable. He is also Kuta Sta in the sense that he is famous for being offered Anakuta, a mountain of food, while standing on a special peak, that of Govardhan. At the lotus feet of Krishna, the enemy of the demon Madhu, a sincere servant of the Vaishnavas can obtain rati rasa, a never-ending festival of prema, from which comes an enjoyment so intense, tivra, that nothing can impede or interrupt it. Material existence is full of various miseries, but devotional service at Krishna's lotus feet, padayoho, eradicates them all. Vyasa nardanaha. Vyasa nardanaha. Or, if we take padayo, to modify vyasa nardanaha, the meaning of the two words together is that which destroys the pain felt by the feet. Krishna's Rasa Leela is mostly a festival of dancing, and dancing means moving the feet. By entering the rasa dance, one's feet will be relieved of the distress they feel from doing other things. It's poetic like anything. Now, I'm going to end. This is Sanatana Goswami not only wrote Brhad Bhagavatamrta, but he wrote the commentary on Brhad Bhagavatamrta. And Gopi's commentary is largely following his commentary, but there's some translator's license that's applied a few places. So, to be continued tomorrow. 2 pages out of 24 completed. Hare Krishna, Prabhupada ki jai.